All right, welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Bernd. Evan, how we doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Good. We got a packed show for you guys today. Me and Evan are going to react to the three games that Milwaukee had this week against Detroit, Indiana, and a blowout loss to Boston. And then we got some other breaking news this week. The NBA and the NBPA, the Players Association, have agreed to a new CBA. So me and Evan are going to react to that.
Mhm.
Giannis went on, I don't even know what the show was called, Good Morning Milwaukee this week, where he talked about his long-term future in Milwaukee. And we also react to ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins saying that Jayson Tatum is in the same tier as Giannis.
Mhm.
First up, Milwaukee had a game last week against the Detroit Pistons. They won it 126 to 117. Evan, no Giannis,
Yes, no Giannis and no Drew.
but Chris Middleton really stepped up with 34 points. So, what's your reaction to what you saw in Milwaukee's performance against Detroit?
It was obviously it was the Pistons, but you got to see how you can play without Giannis and Drew. So Chris Middleton game, he shot really bad from the three, but his mid range to driving to the basket seemed to work a lot for him. 13 for 23. Um, but I would say outside of Chris's great game, I think something to sleep on is Javon Carter.
Mm.
Javon Carter, 8 for 15, six of those being three-pointers, shot 6 for 7 from three. So I think of one of those games where we expect Chris to take the primary shots. It's Brooke and Javon and maybe Bobby or Grayson here or there to kind of step up. But I think Javon did a good job to kind of be that second to third scorer on the team to kind of make his presence with their two scorers being out.
With this game, there was really like no tune-in factor for me because a lot of times I will rewatch the games,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so bored watching this particular game, and that happens sometimes with NBA games. You know, it's the Bucks and the Pistons. Like, the Pistons aren't very good, and I guess really when you watch Detroit basketball, the only person you're tuning in to watch right now is Jaden Ivey.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Ivey is a really good player for them. He scored 32 against Milwaukee, but other than that, like, and I kept thinking this on my drive home. What's Detroit's plan? Because a lot of people are saying, well, they're rebuilding. Are they, or are they just throwing a bunch of free agents together and hoping they stick?
Mm-hmm.
Evan, they have three bigs on the roster, and not one of them really has an outside shot. Maybe outside of James Wiseman once in a
Mm-hmm.
while, but I look at it, it's like, okay, Jalen Duran's good. They got James Wiseman, and they
Mm-hmm.
got Isaiah Stewart. But the NBA isn't played with like that many bigs anymore. Like it's the 3-point shot, and I get it. They were missing Bogdanovich,
Mm-hmm.
thank God, but 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 I don't understand why they feel the need to just clog up the paint with three bigs when in reality that's just not what the NBA does anymore.
Yeah, it's obviously getting James Wiseman from the Warriors in the trade deadline. But yeah, it's a different mechanism because you see the Pistons like attempting to make moves this like past off season with like the chances of them getting Aiton from the Suns, but obviously at the team option. So like there were like sparks of like maybe growth, but I don't know. They got Cade Cunningham. Obviously he's been hurt for the rest of
Mm.
the year. But yeah, I'm all for you with kind of you're saying it's weird just because of their record and how their play style is to what they're producing just on the court in general. Especially with Dwayne Casey as their coach, who's known to be a respected coach. Again, coach of the year. Obviously, he got let go then, but I've always liked him. But yeah, it's an odd one because I see no growth like at all throughout the years. There's like maybe a chance that they could do something, but no one. It's one of those things where it's like no one wants to go to Detroit. Nothing has happened there that would make someone want to go there. Like the Bucks, like ooh, they made the playoffs in like years back, and now Giannis is kind of progressing or growing. But Yeah, nothing's happening there.
No, and it kind of like if I had to take like Detroit's future or Houston's future, that might be a toss up to me. I honestly might still pick Detroit because when you're rebuilding as a team, okay, you want to kind of see the wins increase. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the first year of a rebuild is going to be, oh, this team is going to be just awful.
Yep.
Second year, all right, we added a few more wins, and then you just kind of keep growing from there. But if you're just kind of stagnating,
Mm-hmm.
it's like then the rebuild isn't really a rebuild. It's you're in purgatory.
Yes.
And look, they have Cade Cunningham. I get that he's been hurt the whole year, but if Detroit and if they get the number one pick and they get Wembanyama, that's four bigs. They might have to
Mm-hmm.
trade one of them, but that's four young bigs that they got right now.
And they would 100% take him. There's
Yes.
no way they're not going to. So there's, again, the James Wiseman pickup was a pretty good pickup just because obviously people just like expect him to be garbage because, again, he was hurt the whole Warriors championship year and battling injuries, but I think this will be a better fit. But yeah, if they're going to get the first pick, they're going to take him, so they're going to have to change something down there too. And maybe that will help bring some people in if they want to play with Victor himself, but it's just an interesting take. It's that with like a lot of teams in all sports, especially in baseball too, that are just like that throughout the past decade or so. But yeah, it's odd. Obviously they kept it close, but again, you have no Giannis, no Drew.
Mhm.
But it was nothing like flashy happened, but it was just good to see Chris score almost 40 points. 3-point could be a little better, but um, but it was good to have him show up when he needed to.
Yeah, and they did shoot 47% for the game and went 14 of 44 from three. So again, there wasn't anything. I'm sorry to go on this whole Detroit diatribe. It's just there was nothing interesting that really happened in the game. It was just you just kind of knew that Milwaukee was going to win. I believe Detroit snapped its streak against Milwaukee either this year or last year. So
Yep.
Milwaukee largely enough has kind of owned the Central Division throughout the years, but especially against Detroit because it's really been since 2019 when they had that playoff series against them.
Uh-huh.
And obviously Milwaukee made quick work of them. And ever since then, Detroit's never really been able to get back. And Milwaukee's always been a perennial Eastern Conference contender. So this was just one of those games where you're playing a bad team and you just hope Milwaukee wins.
Yep.
I do think it was a little too close for comfort.
It was,
If I'm
yes.
being honest here.
Again, it's the third quarter.
Which again, it's the Milwaukee Bucks special where it's like you kind of look back at that score. It's like, really, it was only 126 to 117.
Mm-hmm.
Like why was it that close? And you kind of understand it because the offense goes kind of down without Giannis and Drew being in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you have your playmaker from Drew, and then you have your dominant scorer from Giannis. So it's like, who's going to step up?
But it is good to see that Chris Middleton is all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know when Chris Middleton comes back, if this man is in his arsenal, in
Michael
his bag,
Jordan,
so to speak, I'm like, oh, he's back. If he's taking people off the dribble, if he's going between the legs, if he's like hitting that mid range and like making the defenders look silly, man is all the way back.
he's either the worst player in the NBA or prime Michael Jordan, and so many people pick up on that. It's so funny. But yeah, he had a really good game, and I'm excited to see, like, hope his shots continue to carry out. Obviously, he's probably not going to be taking 23 shots a game when Giannis and Drew play. There could be a chance, just depending on how other players are shooting, but it was a good comeback game for him, I think, to have.
Speaking of prime Michael Jordan, you know who's been prime Michael Jordan? Javon Carter against bad teams. He's averaged 27 points a game against Oklahoma City. And obviously with another good game against bad teams. If Javon Carter could play every game against either the Oklahoma City Thunder, Detroit Pistons, or even throw in the Orlando Magic, he'd probably average 30 a game.
he is almost like perfected that like fast pace or fast break pull up three
Oh,
where he jumps and he like kicks his butt with his feet because he kicks his legs up so high. I don't know. He can hit some of those quite often, but yeah, 6 or 7 on 3 was not again what you expect from Javon, but it's awesome when you see it.
yep. So good one for Milwaukee. Knocked out the Detroit Pistons last week, 126 to 117. Evan, the next game up against the Indiana Pacers. Now, this game is one of those games I was on crack. Um, just an unbelievable showing for Milwaukee. Knocked off the Indiana Pacers 149 to 136.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacers, once again, didn't have Tyrese Halliburton. And I don't think in their meetings against Milwaukee, they've had Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's
I
missed every
do
game.
not. Yeah, he's been hurt for quite a while. Because I remember, the last 2 times ago, they were down like 16 and had that comeback, but he didn't play in that one either.
But this one, you can see coming, but at the same time, this type of performance from this type of player, you don't see coming. Drew Holiday, 51 points.
Yes, 51, almost a triple-double with the 51, too. He had 8 rebounds and 8 assists, only missed 10 shots. He started off really hot and just kept going. That was his first career 50-point performance, which isn't like something that's surprising because, again, you don't expect Drew Holiday to get 50 points, especially with players that he's played with in the past. But it was a really fun game to see, and everyone was pumped to see him score. And I believe I heard that like almost half of his points he used his left hand on, so just getting to the hoop and little switch arounds. But yeah, it was a really good game for him. And then obviously Giannis. Giannis is a 38-point triple double, almost has 20 rebounds, but that's overlooked because Drew Holiday had 51. But I believe that's the second group of guys or the third group of guys to have like a certain amount of points combined and rebounds, and I think Wilt was 2 of them, and then Giannis and Drew.
And I'm going to be honest, okay? Rewatching that game, it was one of the more boring 51-point performances a person could
It
ever.
was, yes. 3 for 6 on 3. It's not like he had like 10 3-pointers and just couldn't miss. He was just driving to the hoop.
And that's the thing with Milwaukee sometimes is like their play. Like Giannis is exciting. Don't get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but like so with some of those performances, you don't really notice it. Like when Drew scored 51, I was kind of surprised because I didn't even notice that he was like he had a high point total because like naturally at some points he can be like a really good scorer, but that was one of those things where I'm watching it and I'm like, wait, 50 where? I'm like, what screen am I watching this on? How do you get 51?
Yeah, there's sometimes where like you just don't pay attention to the scoring of some of these guys until they mention it in like the third quarter, like, oh, and Drew has gotten 30 points. It's like, oh yeah, he has been scoring a lot.
Jesus.
But yeah, mind-boggling game.
Oh yeah.
But I would say the highlight of the game was the only points this player scored was Grayson Allen's poster on Jordan Nwora. It was like right after Giannis dunked on, I think, Nemhard, one of those guys, and knocked him to the ground. But yeah, then here comes Grayson Allen, a little 2-step drop on Grayson Allen, and he flew to the ground too. That was a scary fall, but he got up and just started screaming with like the adrenaline going, like hyping everyone up. That was a fun play. That was the only basket he made that game.
And you figure there are other NBA fans who like hoped he got hurt after that fall.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you would hope that like he like blew out a knee or something. Like that's just how negative people are towards Grayson Allen. That was insane. And look, I'm not surprised that Grayson Allen did it because I knew he could get up.
Yeah, he has some hops, college and high school.
Yeah, like look, I looked at firsthand when he beat my Badgers in the national championship game. Trust me, this guy he's got hops. He can get up, right? he can jump out of the gym.
It's just not when you would expect it to happen.
No, I didn't expect Grayson Allen to detonate on somebody. It was a little more sweeter the fact it was Jordan Nora.
I know that was out of
That
all
was
the people it could have been, it was him.
yeah, friendly fire there.
Uh-huh.
Goodness, that was insane. And kind of another underrated performance, another good Brook Lopez performance, 21 points.
8 rebounds, yep.
Yeah.
A couple blocks, 3 blocks. But if you look at the Pacers again, they kept it close for quite a while. It was just a scoring game. Mathurin, 29 points, 9 rebounds. Aaron Naismith had 22, but Nembhard had 15 assists and 15 points. Very slept on performance, 15 assists. Shooting wise, not the best game, but makes up with the assist. But yeah, I think the Pacers have a really good, solid core. Obviously, you're out Miles Turner, you're out Buddy Hield, and you're out Tyrese Halliburton. You're basically your top 3 guys, in my opinion. You're going to be keeping these games close, but they seem to. I think one of the things is that when these guys or these teams are playing higher performing teams, they want to just try to beat them. And I think that's the goal for a lot of these, like, not underachieving teams, but like teams where they're not going to get like a top seed. And the Pacers sure as hell have done it the entire season with them winning one of the 3 games they've played or 4 games.
Yeah, and it's been and obviously, like you mentioned, they were missing those 3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I want to bring up was the fact that Giannis picked up a rare technical. So to kind of run through the play, Drew was giving Giannis an alley-oop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was contact there.
There was right on the hips.
And it was a dangerous play because Giannis was midair, and it wasn't like an Amari Stoudemire, but there was contact. I don't think he got shoved, but it was one of those plays where it could result in like a serious injury.
Mm-hmm.
And Giannis gets up, he's hot.
He is
steaming at
That's scary.
like Giannis is like one of the more respectful players in the NBA, especially to referees. And obviously he picked up a technical. And we mentioned that play that dunk over Nembhard. I think that he was still hot from the first quarter, so he kind of carried that over into the fourth, where it was like, oh, okay. Like, you do not want to make Giannis mad. The ref not making that call, I was like, oh, okay. All right, we're good. And the officials in that particular game were a little tech happy. Like, I believe Goran Dragic picked up one.
Yeah, he did. And it was like right near the end. And it was like you couldn't see it because it happened like off the camera. Yeah, he got one near the end of the game.
So it's that's where this game is crazy, especially with high scoring as a game like this. Neesmith had a good game too. But I think I believe someone else picked up a technical. I forget who it was. Oh, it was Bobby. Bobby Portis picked up a technical as well for I forget what he did. I think he caught someone with an elbow. I know because Neesmith got 5 points off that possession. Because he hit the 2 and then he got the 3.
Yes. Yep. It was the inadvertent elbow, come around to the face. Yep. He got that. Then they hit the 3. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. There we go. I knew there was another tech in there. I was just trying to remember where it was. So overall, Milwaukee in a 109-136 game got 3 technicals. But other than that, it was a solid performance.
We got to do it.
Which is the last one we got this week. I gotta talk about this. We gotta talk about this. This one was so the Milwaukee Bucks played the Boston Celtics on Thursday night, a back-to-back, national television, TNT. Kevin Hart, Reggie Miller, Al Force, the number 1 game of the week. Boston beat us 140-99. Now look, here's what I will say. Milwaukee had a good first quarter. And then it just went downhill from there. It was I even had this written down here. Their worst performance this year. And it was even worse than the performance they had against Charlotte.
Yeah, they've lost to
January.
Charlotte and the Rockets this year. And this was their worst one, hands down.
This was their worst one this year. Evan, I guess, go ahead. What's your reaction to Milwaukee's performance against Boston?
The one thing is, I know it's probably not going to happen again. Jayson Tatum was 8 for 10 on threes. There's no way he's doing that again. And I think a Boston Celtics fan could say that again because he has been extremely streaky. I don't want to say the entire year, but for the past couple weeks, maybe a couple months or one or two, he's not doing that again. So that you cut that in half. Again, I don't like to say he's not going to make all his 3-pointers, but you cut that to like 3 or 4, and cut that shots in half. But Bucks are just missing everything. Again, another back-to-back with a traveling one, 5 games in 7 days. I hate making excuses, but it's hard playing so many games and then coming on a back-to-back. But I would say the biggest thing is that the Celtics needed to win this game. They had to, based off of the standings. So they were going to do whatever they could to win. Yet they blew the hell out of the Bucks in this game. Can't get them wrong on that. But when you're missing every single shot, you're not going to win the game. And when the other team's making every single shot, there's no way the Bucks are just going to like all of a sudden pick it up. It'd be a little different if the Celtics weren't making as many shots, but they just couldn't miss. But it was really just Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum the whole time. And when you have a guy shoot 8 for 10 on 3-pointers, you're going to win a game.
Yeah.
Am I a little worried for the playoffs? Yeah, I think everyone is. Do I think that this means that the Bucks are going to get swept? No, I don't. The Bucks have sucked in the regular season this whole year against the Celtics. I would say the biggest thing is that there's no way like how the Bucks playing is going to be how they're going to play against them in the playoffs if they were to see them. But you can't have a game where you're shooting like horrendously every single time. So it's a little worrisome, but I don't know. You're going to get blown out. It sucks that it was the Celtics. It sucks that it's the crunch time. But coming off a back-to-back is always hard to play, especially this type of game.
So I don't want to use a back-to-back as an excuse. Because, I was reading in some of the interviews that they're not using it as an excuse.
Oh, it's never. It's just it's always the second game that's the game that they're going to play. Because like we had the Nuggets one and then it's the Celtics one, of course. That's how it's turned out to be.
So Jayson Tatum went nuts in this game. I was looking at the box score. He scored 40 points in 31 minutes.
You could take out all his scoring and they still lose. That's how bad the Bucks lost.
Now look, Jaylen Brown. I'm not surprised Jaylen Brown went off against the Bucks because he is a Bucks killer. He's never been able to stop Jaylen Brown, ever. There's never been a game that I've watched where Milwaukee's played Boston where we've been able to stop Jaylen Brown. He is that good. And I'm so surprised that Boston is even thinking about a contract, like thinking about not extending this guy. Extend him. Like, and people were talking about 2 years ago, oh, well, they're going to break up Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. No, they don't. Okay? These two are what make the Celtics work. Without these two, the Celtics are not a very good basketball team. Who are you relying on? Marcus Smart? Robert Williams? Like Grant Williams? I mean, there's nobody, like, it's these two. These two are going to be the reason if Boston makes it all the way. Okay, I don't want that to happen. I'm just kind of looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah,
Milwaukee, it was a horrendous performance. I mean, Giannis, whatever, 24 points. They made it really tough on him. Nobody can make shots. Okay, you can't come out. It's so disappointing because the first quarter, you thought it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Everyone was into it. Everyone was live, and all of a sudden, Boston hit a few shots. Milwaukee couldn't hit anything, and it was curtains. Game was over.
Yep.
Honestly, if I were TNT, I would have done one of those things where I would have put on a movie. Okay, I would have put on like a 9 p.m. movie to just cut away from that game because it was horrendous. You just cannot come out like that. you can't come out after the first quarter and just stop playing basketball.
Yes.
You can't. You just can't. You can't come out that flat against that team. But Boston, you're right. Okay, even in their lone win against them, when Boston was shorthanded, they still had to win in overtime. So that's what concerns me about the playoffs is that we know Boston matches up really well with Milwaukee. But sometimes, at some points, with these 3 regular season wins, we need to kind of question if Boston might be slightly better than Milwaukee. Sure, Milwaukee is a 1 seed, but and they could potentially get home court advantage. But it could go from Boston is slightly better than Milwaukee to Boston. Boston. Let me try it again. It could go from Boston is
Boston's better than Milwaukee.
Yeah, it could go. So it could go from Boston matches really well up with Milwaukee to Boston is better than Milwaukee. There we go. Got that sentence down. I know every year everybody talks about championships, but you have to worry about playoff Boonhoser. Okay, what Milwaukee say in Game 5 they have a 15-point lead against Boston. Okay, Milwaukee has blown a lot of playoff leads under Mike Budenholzer. Nobody wants to admit it, but they have. And that was the whole knock at Budenholzer is he's a great regular season coach, but what's it going to look like in the postseason?
Yep.
Like that would be my concern is, there are some coaches, especially going back to last year. And look, I think it would have been different. I do think Milwaukee would have won the ECF if Chris Middleton didn't play. Or if Chris Middleton played, I think Milwaukee would have won. But now you kind of worry about, with Budenholzer's rotations, is he going to get out coached? I mean, look, we already saw this last year with George Hill playing over Javon Carter in the playoffs.
Yep.
Is that going to be another situation this year where there's one particular player who's not playing as well, and yet he's still getting more playing time because he's a veteran? That's what would concern me. And we've already kind of seen it this year with Jay Crowder not being in there for the most of the fourth quarters. Now, look, we saw the matchup where Crowder was going up against Jayson Tatum. Okay, we saw that. Okay, there was, he didn't defend him as well, or even Jaylen Brown. So our defensive stopper, it's like he's got to lock it in before the playoffs start.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but it's again regular season of playoffs. The intensity cranks up. I think the Bucks know what they have to do. It's not like they're like, oh well, we'll just see what happens. They 100% know like what the switch needs to be. It's just annoying because I want them to get the first seed for the home court advantage, and with the Sixers tonight, it's going to be a little tricky.
Oh yeah, the 76ers. I saw Nick Wright say this, and I laughed a little bit. That said, Philadelphia is going to beat Boston to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm like, there is no way that anybody should be worried about the Philadelphia 76ers. None.
They're really good regular season team. Now, don't get me wrong on that. It's just the playoffs. I don't think they've gotten out the second round. If I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it all depends on Doc Rivers, I think. A lot of people do not like Doc Rivers as a coach.
No, and here's the problem with Doc Rivers coach teams, okay? Because you knew those Clippers teams that he had were stacked. Didn't have enough depth. Made it to one Eastern Conference, I guess 2 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Okay? That's the problem with Doc Rivers coach teams. They never have enough depth. Okay? His Clippers teams don't have enough depth, and his 76ers teams don't have enough depth. Outside of James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey, who else are you concerned about that could hurt them in the playoffs?
There's a couple guys, but it's not like they're averaging 20-some points. This is Max Strus. He's one of those like shooter guys, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's similar to like what the Suns have. You have like these top guys and then Torrey Craig. And It's some of those things where it's like you got these all like literal superstars, and then so we'll see. I'm really excited for the playoffs. Like I love watching playoff basketball. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the end of the season goes. First and second seed wise, I think the Bucks and Celtics I think will be the best playoff series if they play each other in the entirety of the playoffs outside of the finals.
Those two are definitely on a collision course.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I think those two in the Eastern Conference Finals are definitely on a collision course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they gotta get through the first two rounds first. See, that's the thing. It's like anything can happen in the playoffs. Like you think there could be one matchup that everyone's really gearing up for. It could be a matchup, and then one injury happens, two injury happens, and your whole season's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Seen it happen. Okay. The NBA playoffs, it's the most unpredictable thing. Is that it gets harder as you go on because all your weaknesses that have been there through the regular season get more highlighted and more scrutinized in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And Milwaukee, their key is like 3-point shooting. That's always kind of been their bugaboo in the playoffs is they haven't been able to shot the three that well. Even when they won the championship, they made only 32% of their threes.
Mm-hmm.
So if Milwaukee has to shoot well from three in order to go on to the next round, or Chris Middleton has to play out of his mind again.
I was going to say they're going to try to drive to the hoop. They're going to stop Giannis, and then they're going to miss their threes. That's what happened last year, and it's a possibility that could happen again. So they got to figure out something where they got to still be able to get to the hoop.
Exactly. So a really heartbreaking loss against Boston, 140-99. We're just gonna move on. I don't even want it. There's nothing good that happened from that game. So you know what? We gotta think of some positive news, Evan.
Mm-hmm.
And the positive news that kind of came across was on Friday, where the NBA and the Players Association.
Yep.
They reached a new collective bargaining agreement. So I'm not going to list everything that was agreed to because a lot of it is stuff I don't understand. So I'm going to just list the important stuff. So a new CBA has been reached. Here are some of the new rule changes that will be implemented next year. A minimum of 65 games for players to win individual awards such as MVP. All right. Well, this one is kind of important, but a third two-way contract via cap exception. So that means that if you add a third two-way player, it won't count against the cap, similar to Milwaukee has now with AJ Green and Lindell Wigginton.
Correct.
The two guys not counting against the cap. So, and this one has finally been agreed to. Adam Silver has been wanting to get this introduced since 2019. But Evan, an in-season tournament is set to take place kind of at the beginning of the season, I guess. Like it'd be about a month or two in. So kind of explain that a little bit. So obviously all 32 teams are going to take part in this in-season tournament. 8 teams are going to advance. Okay. And they're trying again. 32 teams are going to take part in the tournament. 8 teams are going to advance. It's then from that point, it's going to be single elimination.
Okay.
And then with the final 2 teams, that is obviously going to count against how many games are played. So instead of 82, it's going to be 83. But for the other teams that don't go on to the finals, okay, they're still going to be playing just regular season games.
Okay. And
this will be a regular season, and it will still be a regular season schedule. And the final 8 are going to go to somewhere. Las Vegas has been talked about. And then the teams that get eliminated, they are just still going to be playing their normal schedule. It's going to be kind of confusing at first, but once it gets implemented, I think people will kind of start to understand it a little bit more. Here's another one. NBA players will no longer be prohibited from smoking marijuana.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one because there have been guys who have lost their careers because of that, and now they're not in shape to just come right back to the NBA. One of the big ones, I believe, OJ Mayo, like a 2-year suspension and never saw the NBA again. So that's an interesting one. I'm kind of glad they did it. A lot of players and coaches have come out about that one, but yeah, it's hard to see because like guys have lost their jobs and careers because of doing it a couple times, and then but I'm glad that's finally kind of been overlooked, or
Yeah,
not overlooked, but looked at.
Yeah, someone joked that Kevin Durant does it, and someone joked that he's going to come out and average 65 points a game. He's going to be so like Kevin Durant relaxed. Okay,
Yep.
now that he knows he can like do it without like being tested for it, man's going to come out and get a 60 piece his first game. This one was huge, and one of my favorite talk shows, Dan Patrick, has been clamoring for this, and he finally gets his wish. Is all NBA teams now will be positionless. So It's not going to be a point guard, a shooting guard, a forward, a center, none of that. It's going to be the 5 best players are going to be get to either first team, second team, or third team all NBA.
I like that one.
Which people have been clamoring for because here's an example. So Rudy Gobert has got a couple of first team nods. And a lot of people disagree with that because they don't feel like Rudy Gobert is one of the 5 best players in the NBA. But because he's a center, they gotta like throw him in there because center was his position.
Yep.
But because he was the best center, but he's not necessarily the best player. So I'm actually fine with this rule change. And here's one more that this one's like really interesting. So now that the players won't be tested for marijuana anymore. Players will be able to invest in NBA and WNBA teams, as well as promote/invest in sports betting and cannabis companies. So that one was interesting. It's it's now with that one that feels like the NBA is light years ahead of the NFL. So Evan, I know I threw a lot at you. So what I guess is your favorite rule change that is going to take place next season?
I think the biggest one will be the giving out the awards with like the requirement of games played, and I think the going along with like the first team NBA. I think that's a big one, and I feel like a lot of people could hate it, but then it gives like people like chances who might never make one because they're always like the second or third best point guard, where it's like you could never get first team, but you could get second team all the time. So I think it kind of gives more guys an opportunity to hit that first team or whatever, if they're always third team, second team, first team. But I think it gives them a better chance to just kind of give it a better mix of who can win that award. So again, you have the certain amount of guards and then the centers. So again, like how you said with Rudy Gobert, of you could pick a bunch of centers and it's always going to be the same guys, but defensive wise too. So I kind of like that one, like weirdly enough. It's hard to explain like the difference, but it'll give people a different opportunity to get first team, second team, and third team who might not ever get it in their career.
Well, and a couple of players will be disqualified from winning the MVP.
Yeah, that'll also be interesting to see like how different that turns for like some teams. Like if you're resting Giannis or Embiid or Jokic, how it's going to be record wise. But it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see like the difference in stats, especially too of is anyone going to go up? Is anyone going to drop in points? But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it's a good switch.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of Kawhi Leonard.
That is true.
Kawhi Leonard, apparently for the first time since 2021, has played a back-to-back. Finally, Kawhi Leonard's playing a back-to-back, and that was considered news because he hadn't done it because the Clippers don't, God forbid, got to keep that knee healthy. Kawhi Leonard probably won't win an MVP. Not that he's really ever been considered an MVP in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But and someone was joking that Mikal Bridges could win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. I mean, Mikal Bridges is he's playing almost every game.
Yep.
So the rule change that really interesting to me is the in-season tournament, only because of the fact that I never thought that that would really pass through.
I know. I was never a really big fan of that one when it's been kind of brought up throughout the last few years. It's interesting. I don't know. I'm curious to see like how it plays out. I'll give it that. We'll see like how it kind of goes on with what happens.
I don't know if I want to say gimmicky because again, I haven't seen it, and who knows? It could either get rave reviews or
it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be like everyone loves it or everyone hates it. I think it's gonna be a toss up.
Yeah, like I think the play-in tournament, I think everybody unanimously likes the play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But the in-season tournament, I'm not 100% sure about. I just can't. It's kind of one of those things where I don't want to overreact too quick because I don't know that much about it. I kind of have to wait and see if I like it. I'm sure not everyone was crazy about the bubble games from 2020, and some of them ended up being the best games. So, it is what it is. What it is. It's one of those things I kind of have to wait and see what happens. It is interesting. Oh, and the cash prize is going to be $500,000. So it'll be a lot of money. There was another thing that was agreed to on the new CBA. Obviously, reading Shams' tweet, this was from 2 days before that, is the NBA won't do away with the one and done rule. So players still have to wait a full year before graduation or after graduation before they can apply for it. So we're still going to see all the best talent, which there was a lot of talk of people being like, well, they're going to do away with the one and done rule. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I didn't like that one only because of the fact that I think the NBA and even high school players have kind of changed. Like when KG went out and Kobe came out and when LeBron came out, like those guys were ready.
Like, yeah, it's like peak athleticism as a high schooler.
Like those guys, not just that, but maturity wise, you have to be ready maturity wise, to go straight from high school to the NBA. Like maturity wise, those three guys stick out to me as guys who are ready. But I don't know. Today's generation, and this is gonna make me sound old, even though I'm only 24. I just don't know if they have the maturity level to be like, oh, well, I'm ready to go with the NBA. I'm like one of the best players. It's like, you think you're one of the best players? Because keep in mind that when those guys came out, there wasn't really any social media. So now with social media being what it is, all you get is people being like telling you how great you are. Where you feel like, oh, I don't have to refine my game because I'm going to be making all this money. So I'm fine with the NBA and the NBPA being like, no, we don't. No, like players shouldn't go straight from high school to the NBA.
I just see it as like a safety or like injury issue of if some of these guys haven't like fully like hit their, like some guys are still growing, some are still like body wise getting bigger. Like when it comes to like going to the gym, like are some of these guys like ready to just take a hit from Giannis, Zion, Tatum, Embiid?
Yeah, imagine like a 17, 18-year-old, one of the best players in your class. You go straight from high school to the NBA, and you get a shoulder to the chest from Giannis.
Yeah.
And he just dunks over you. Like, that's your welcome to the NBA moment right there.
I just see it as like the health and the safety issues of some of these guys. Obviously, now I don't say it's like every single person is going to get injured right away. It's like some of these guys. It's like when you see Giannis come into the NBA, he was tall, but he was thin. Thon Maker, tall, super thin.
Yeah.
Again, you got a lot of these tall guys who are NBA ready, but are they NBA ready, or are they like saying that they're ready? So I never really hated the one and done or just go right to college.
No.
I never like, doesn't really bother me whether it got overturned or not, but that one's always like if that changes, cool. If it doesn't, I don't really care.
And players back then, it's not that they weren't muscular, but now it's like they're muscular and skilled.
Uh-huh.
Like some of the biggest muscular guys now are like really the most skilled players. Like you throw in Zion. Obviously hasn't played many games this year, but when he does, like, Zion has a lot of talent. Giannis has a lot of talent. And look, players are a lot more skilled now than they were back then. Okay. You catch a crossover from like Kyrie Irving, or you get John Morant yamming on you, or you get Jayson Tatum hitting you with the step back three. Like, it's different from when those guys came out because players weren't as skilled then as they were now. Like those players kind of help usher in a new generation of players, because the NBA players just weren't that talented, and now everybody's talented. Like, everybody has skill. So, and I don't even think the NBA was as big back then as it is now.
Yeah, you got a lot of these young guys who are watching some of the up and growing supers. Like some of these guys coming into the NBA watched Kyrie Irving as a kid.
Yeah.
Because that's how young they are. There's NBA players who are 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
I was studying to be a teacher when I was 19 years old. I was this little pencil kid in college. And now these guys are like 6'8", muscular build, and ready to go to the NBA.
Yep. Yeah. Hey. So I was still in college when these kids were in college.
LeBron played with some of their dads. Like that's the difference.
Crazy to me.
Like LeBron playing against Gary Payton and Gary Payton Jr.
It's crazy. That's how. Like, there was a kid who walked up to LeBron and was like, "Oh, yeah, he played against my dad."
Yeah, some guy on the Pistons, I think.
Might have been the Pistons or the Kings. He didn't play much, but he was like, "Oh, dude." He made his. LeBron was like, "Jesus."
Yeah, that's weird. But yeah, guys are young in in all sports. Baseball, you got 18-year-olds playing in the majors.
I know.
19-year-olds. I'm like, God, I'm watching the stands.
Yep. So, it's crazy. It's crazy. Next up, Giannis went on a morning talk show. That's all I'm going to call it. A morning talk show where he talked about his future in Milwaukee. And I actually have the clip, and I'm going to pull it up right now.
Yeah, I think he was in New York for something. I know he was ringing the stock bell. I saw him. Thanasis and Kostas were doing that. Or not Kostas, sorry. Thanasis and Alex.
Yeah. So here it is.
I think the big question many people want to know, you've been with the Milwaukee Bucks, do you plan to stay with them forever? And please speak into the microphone. Go ahead, Giannis.
I wear it by heart on my sleeve, and I really appreciate people that gave me opportunity to change my life, my parents' life, my kids' life, and I don't take that for granted. I don't take that lightly. And the first time I was, able to leave and be a free agent to go join another team, I chose to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks because they helped me. They guided me through all this process. When I was 18 years old, I knew no better. So that I will always have that in my mind and my heart. And as long as I'm healthy, and as long as they want me to be a part of the Milwaukee Bucks organization, I would love to stay there.
I think the big question many people want to know, you've been with the Milwaukee Bucks, do you plan to stay with them forever?
See, I hate when I obviously like his response. That question is used so much for professional athletes because they want to get that like, what is he gonna say kind of answer. But like how she asked that was like, now please speak into the microphone. Like, give us your answer. And it's like, I hate when like they're intimidating about it. And it's always one of those questions where it's like for instance, when Giannis was asked if he would ever see himself playing for the Bulls, And Giannis was like, yeah, it's been a very successful season. It's like they want you to say, yeah, I would play, or no, I wouldn't. And then they're like, oh, Giannis would never want to. It's like, it's one of those, like, they want to get that rise out of that player. I like his response. It's different from like other athletes because, like, I don't know if you remember Kyrie Irving on the Celtics, or not on the Celtics, when he was on the Cavs. That kid was like, Kyrie, are you ever going to leave us? And he's like, no, I won't. And then he left. It's like the difference in like your response, I think, is how you can kind of believe it. Now, I would take Giannis 100% saying that he would believe it. He could have left 2 times ago, and he continues to say, I think the Bucks did a lot for him, just overall. But it's one of those questions where it's like, I don't know, like it's a bad question, I think, to ask an athlete, and it puts them under a lot of pressure because you want to answer in like a most unopinionated question.
Well, yeah, and we in the biz like to call that. Sorry, we in the biz like to call that a leading question.
Yes.
Which is, you're asking a question hoping for like a specific response.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I didn't think anything about the question. I more laughed at the fact that Giannis was like, well, as long as I'm healthy, and if the Bucks want me, I'd love to be in Milwaukee. Like he's talking like a 7-year veteran that like really hasn't done much, but he's like a fan favorite. Yeah, like, dude, you're the 2-time MVP. Like we're gonna want you. Like, so that part of it made me laugh. I get it. He's on a morning talk show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they need their clicks. You know,
it was a very reasonable response, and I think you could have said that to any single player in all professional sports, and you would be like, "Yep, that is the answer that, as a fan, you would want to hear."
It's so funny to me that like Giannis, like he doesn't like the accolades, and he doesn't like getting praised too much. Like everybody say, "Oh, Giannis one of the best players on the Bucks," but I swear to God, if you ask him that question, he's like, "No, I'm not. It's Marcus Johnson." Like that's how he is. Like he'll be like he doesn't. He just doesn't. He's like so humble about everything that he just doesn't see himself as a great player because he didn't win a championship. Like that's so funny to me that he was speaking as like Bobby Portis would.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd love to if they would have me. Dude, you signed a max contract extension, and I don't even, and I get it. I don't even understand where that question came from because it's like, lady, you just signed a max contract extension. Like you're acting like he's going into free agency next year. So I just didn't. You are right about that question. I didn't get it from that standpoint because I was like, but he just signed a max contract extension. Like he's not leaving for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, they want is Giannis leaving the like. It's all the click. I just hate that question in interviews. Even like for like players that I could care less about if they left or not. It's just like it's annoying because you're on the spot. You're on like the biggest good morning news in the entire country. It's like, what are they gonna do to get this guy to say something?
Well, I wish it was a Good Morning America. I think this one was local.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, yep, that's what you're getting. And like every professional athlete knows how to respond to that one, or they know they're going to hear it at least once in their career.
And by the way, shameless plug, that was obviously played on the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap YouTube page. Please subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. Because I posted that the other day, and I swear to you, it got like 1,000 views in like 30 minutes. So, not to brag, I'm just saying. Every time you use Giannis in anything, you just, you get your views up. Last topic of the day, if I can find it. ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins had these comments about Jayson Tatum being in the same breath as Giannis. I actually have the clip, and I'm going to play it right now.
Giannis is a two-time MVP and an NBA champion, but is Tatum on the same tier as Giannis?
Yes, and look, I believe that Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the world, okay? But it's not by far. Okay, you have multiple guys that are sitting at the same dinner table ordering the same entrees as Giannis, and Jayson Tatum is one of them. When I look at Jayson Tatum, and we're talking about the now, think about what he is. A 6'10" guy that has the complete offensive package that is capable of locking down on the other end, playing 1 through 5. He has zero flaws in his game offensively. When you talk about the help, he has that. When you talk about his pull-up three, he has that. Now, to take it a step further, he plays in one of the most historical franchises in sports history. He's on pace in the same franchise of Paul Pierce played in, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Bill Russell, the list goes on, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Cornbread Maxwell, my guy. He's about to be the first player in Celtic history to average 30 points a game in a season. That speaks volumes in itself when you set the bar. So is Giannis, yes, is he the best player in my eyes? But is Jayson Tatum in the same tier, sitting at the same table? Hell yeah, he is, along with a few others like Embiid and Jokic, and still LeBron James, who's averaging 38 and 7 at the age of 38 years of elder age.
That
What's your reaction to that?
What's funny is that on like the bottom, like under the video playing, it's like Giannis like 31 points, career high, and then in parentheses 2-time MVP, and then it says like Jayson Tatum 6 in points per game. And it's like showing like all the accolades of Giannis, and then now don't get me wrong, I like Jayson. Okay, let me backtrack on that. I like Jayson Tatum as a player. I think he's really good. He's skilled. It's one of those like where it's like you see like people ranking stuff and you have like the S tier and the A tier.
Yeah.
I would say he's not S tier, but he's above A tier. He's like an A plus, but not an S tier. And when you don't have an MVP, you don't have a ring, you don't have like a lot of like the not smaller, but like the accolades that like builds up over time that like shows like, yes, that's a good player. He doesn't have it, and I could think that a Boston Celtics fan could say the same thing.
Mm.
And if you don't, it's super biased. Because I could say this about like if it was like flipped and like that was Tatum, like Giannis, if Giannis was Tatum and Tatum was Giannis, there's no way I would agree that Giannis is the same as Tatum. There's no way. 2-time MVP, defensive player of the year, most improved player, finals MVP, ring, to Tatum's finals appearance that he lost. I don't know. Tatum's not bad, but I wouldn't put him up with Jokic and Embiid who have won, or Jokic and Giannis who have won MVPs. I mean, you could honestly say like the same thing about Embiid. Embiid's a really good player, but does he have the same accolades as Giannis? No. He has the same accolades as Tatum. I don't know. It's an interesting topic. I see where he's going with it. Like, if you were to rank all those guys the same, Giannis is better. But, like, saying Giannis is better on the same tier, that means all those people on that tier have to be, like, the similar skill level. And I don't see that.
Yeah.
They're different, and they're also different play styles, too. Tatum isn't a big who's primarily in the paint.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's a weird one, but I would say no and disagree with Perkins. And no Bucks bias. I would say that about anyone. I hate biasing the Bucks, but it's different when Giannis is on the team that you cheer for.
1,000% agree with you. Jayson Tatum is in that second tier. I'd put him with like Luka. Like people have always said like Luka isn't like that top tier with Giannis, Embiid, or Jokic, but he's in that second tier.
Mm-hmm.
And look, even that second tier could kind of be ever changing. I don't know who you put on there. Ja Morant, maybe. I don't know. Like who he's not in that second tier, and here's why. Has he put up good postseason performances? Yes. But people don't focus on everybody can put together a good postseason performance. Everybody. But Jayson Tatum had a finals appearance last year against the Golden State Warriors, and what did he do? Nothing. He did not have a good series against the Golden State Warriors at all. At all. And that's what people are looking at when they look at that first tier is, can you get it done when it matters most?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jokic hasn't, but that's only because he hasn't had his full team around him on a consistent basis. Embiid hasn't. Embiid hasn't even gotten past the second round. So people are talking about tiers. It's not only that Giannis is far better than Tatum. He's way better than Tatum. Like, I can't even believe this is a discussion. I think if we even have to make this discussion, I think Luka is a better player than Tatum is. Like Luka has, if not equal level, he has more skill level than Jayson Tatum does.
Mm-hmm.
You said Jayson Tatum earlier is streaky. You're right, he is streaky. Okay? But you know what you're getting out of Giannis every single game. Okay? You get a good game from Giannis every other game, even if he doesn't score the basketball a lot,
Mm-hmm.
or if he doesn't, if he doesn't have a good shooting game, he's going to add at least 25 and 5, 25 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole argument of Jayson Tatum being in the same stratosphere as Giannis, it's nuts. It's positively nuts.
It's possible to be on the same tier level. It just needs to be shown.
Yeah,
and that's what I'll go with.
Where are your stats? Oh well, I just listed off a bunch of players, and he's going to be the first player in Celtics history to average 30. Okay, but here's the thing: does a regular season matter in the NBA? Yes, but do people care more about what happens in the playoffs more than what happens in the regular season? Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, the Bucks are going to win over 50 games. Do I care unless they win a championship this year? No. If they lose in the second round, was this a good year? No. It's been we've had 5 good years, okay? And one title.
When you're a team it's win or nothing, if you don't win, then it's great, that was not the point of the season, and now we had to do it all over again next year.
Yeah, it killed me last year when the game 7 against Boston was non-competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Got blown out of the doors in the Boston Garden. It killed me to watch because I knew they were moving on. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and our season was over, and then you gotta wait all the way again in October.
Mm-hmm.
Playoff losses, especially when you lose a series like that, where it really could have gone either way, and you get blown out of the floor in Boston. Those kind of losses hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little less than say if they lost on a game-winning 3, but it still hurts the same. You're like Devin Booker after you lost to the Bucks in the finals. You're like, damn. That's what you like, and the playoff losses hurt, and the fans are, the players and the fans are, we're in this together. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not as much as the players, but the fans who watch every game, watch from October to April or October to May or June.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this with them. So, Evan, you got anything else?
No, we got 5 games left. Got the Sixers tonight, Wizards on Tuesday, and another back-to-back, Bulls on Wednesday, Grizzlies Friday, and Raptors Sunday. So we're done in a week.
We're done in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Done in a week. Yep. So if you're unaware of the schedule, the play-in tournament, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, it starts April 11th to the 14th.
I believe so. And then
the NBA playoffs, the first round begins, I believe, April 15th. Or is it still April 14th?
I just had it up. The play-in tournament, April 11th, 12th, and 14th. And then everything else starts then. It should be right after that.
I believe the NBA playoffs always starts on a Sunday, so I believe
Mhm.
it would be April 15th.
Yep. They conclude on April 14th for the play-in tournament.
Yeah, because they because they play the first team, and then if the one team wins, then they play the. Is it a game of two? I forget how it works. Is it a game of two, or do they?
Yes,
just have to
game
win
of
one?
2. I think it's a best of 3, if I'm
Okay,
not
okay,
mistaken.
best of 3. All right. So, yep, get ready for that. We're all gearing up for the playoffs here.
Mhm.
It's been, it's been insane. Start this podcast in October, and the regular season's almost over.
Yep. Getting ready for the playoffs.
Oh, me and Evan, I'm going to tell you right now, me and Evan are gearing up for the playoffs.
I'm excited. I love playoff basketball, even for just watching all teams, like being able to just kind of watch some of these other competitive teams that you won't really watch in the regular season as much, but I'm excited.
Yep.
Couple
So
weeks away.
look out for this game tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Start time is at
7 o'clock.
7
so
o'clock.
Around 6, or sorry, around like 7:10ish. They usually start a little later. But yeah, got to win this one.
Yep, got to win. So,
Home
all right,
game.
this has been this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we will see you guys next week.